Hello and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Well, today we continue on into Matthew chapter 8. We are nearing the end. We're about 3/4 of the way through it. And today we're going to look at verses 18 through 20. And this is kind of a popular verse of Jesus. It's popular but often overlooked. I know it kind of sounds contradictory, but you'll know what I mean in a second when we go over it. But here we go. Matthew chapter 8, verses 18 through 20 say, "Now when Jesus saw great crowds around him, he gave orders to go over to the other side. A scribe then approached and said, 'Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go.' And Jesus said to him, 'Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head.'" Very interesting. So first things first, verse 18 says, "Now when Jesus saw great crowds around him, he gave orders to go over to the other side." Now when he says go over to the other side, he's talking about the other side, the eastern shore of the Sea of Galilee. You see, popularity of Jesus started getting very popular for the miracles that he was performing. And I kind of equate it to like the paparazzi of today when they see a famous person. The famous person can't go into where they're trying to go because all these people are mobbing around them. Well, Jesus is kind of saying, let's go to the other side and we'll go around the other way. That's pretty much it on that. And the other one, we read about the scribe. So when we see the word scribe in the New Testament, it's a religious teacher, someone who's very prominent in Judaism. You know, it could be a Pharisee, a Sadducee, whatever the case is. Someone very prominent is coming to Jesus and saying, "I'm going to follow you wherever you go." And Jesus responds, "Hey, foxes have dens, birds have nests. I don't have anywhere to sleep." Following Jesus may require sacrifice on our part. So are we willing to go where he leads us to go? Or are we so attached to our material comforts that it may not be a priority or something we want to do? You see, he's challenging the scribe. He's saying, if you follow me... Now remember what the scribes are doing. They didn't believe Jesus was the Messiah. If this scribe followed Jesus, this man would lose everything. He would lose his source of income, his social status. He may lose his property. I mean, there was a lot at stake. And Jesus is just being upfront with him, saying, hey, you may lose these things if you follow me. It's kind of the same with us. We're not in some parts of the world, this is still the case, where if you become a Christian, you may very well lose everything. But the simple fact of the matter is, guys, that following Jesus is not a guarantee that we're going to have an easy or comfortable life. There most likely will be sacrifices on our end. You know, friends and family may be upset at us and may not talk to us because we choose to follow Christ. But here's the thing. While the cost of following Christ may be high, the value of being a disciple of Christ is much higher. It has eternal benefits to it. Let's do what's right. Let's follow Christ. One last thing I wanted to touch on was Jesus calling himself the Son of Man. And if you're familiar with the Bible, he does this quite often. And this kind of goes back to the book of Daniel. This goes back to the book of Daniel a little bit. So the title occurs only 3 times in the New Testament outside of the Gospels. And one of those is Acts 7:56, Revelation 1:13, and Revelation 14:14. And all the occurrences involved assertions made by Jesus about himself. Okay, the use is similar to God's calling Ezekiel the Son of Man in Ezekiel 2:1. Now, this title is used by Jesus when he predicts the suffering, death, and resurrection that he would accomplish for all of us. And the usage, like I said, comes from the book of Daniel. It stems from Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, where we read, "One like the Son of Man appears before the Ancient of Days and receives world dominion and worship." This is a declaration of Jesus' divinity. It's not like Son of Man, like I'm a son of my Father. No, the Jews understood this term to be a declaration of divinity, which is why when he says it another time in the Gospel of Matthew, they pick up stones to try to stone him. So just a couple things about today's verse. I know I'm running a little longer than normal on today's verses, but I think there's just a lot to go over. The scribe comes to Jesus. Jesus says the Son of Man doesn't, foxes have dens, birds have nests. The Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. He's saying, hey, scribe, I am who I say I am. I am divine. I've always existed. If you follow me, there's going to be sacrifice. And he's saying the same thing to us today. God bless you guys. Thank you for joining me on this edition of the Daily Bible Podcast. If you enjoy the show, please rate it, please share it. And as always, any questions at all, please email me. Any prayer requests as well. Please email me, hopewithin18@gmail.com. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for listening.